Back at it.
We are back at it. Welcome back to another edition of the Pistols Firing Podcast. I'm Carson Cunningham, joined as always by Colby Powell. Colby, we got a special show today. Bryce Thompson heading to Oklahoma State. We were wondering when he was going to make his decision. It is made, and man, I'm fired up to talk about Bryce and the future of OSU hoops.
Let's go. Everybody wants to play for Mike Boynton, me included. Do I have any eligibility left? I know I don't have nearly enough talent to be on that team, but I want to check my eligibility. I got to get in the building somehow.
Absolutely. It's going to be such a fun basketball season. But first, let's hear from Chris's University Spirit, your one-stop Cowboy shop. Be sure to shop at chrisuniversityspirit.com. You're going to want to have some OSU hoops gear. Colby, when I was in college, I got like the OSU shorts. Did you ever wear like the OSU basketball shorts?
Absolutely. I have a pair in my drawer right now.
Do you have like the Travis Ford era shorts? I had those, and I also had, my favorites were obviously like the 2004 that style short as well. So I had both.
Yeah, I had the newer school. I had the Travis Ford. I was there. I think my entire time at Oklahoma State overlapped with Travis Ford. I got there in fall of 2011, and I was out in spring of 15. So I'm pretty sure I was Travis Ford the whole time.
Yeah, see, mine were like right when they switched to that 04 era short. So they had like that old school kind of Western motif OSU logo on it that they don't use anymore. They were sweet. I think someone stole them from me at the fraternity house. They were so sweet. I think I lost them at some point, unfortunately. They probably wouldn't fit anyway. But obviously, huge news. Bryce Thompson makes his commitment to Oklahoma State over Oklahoma and Tulsa. And when you and I were discussing it, Colby, I kind of thought that he would go to OSU. That was my thinking all along. It just made perfect sense because as much as he could just be like the Trae Young of Tulsa and score 25 points a game and kind of do what Abmas did at ORU, I think the appeal of Oklahoma State, the relationships he had already built there with players and coaches, was just too much to turn down. And what I heard, Colby, was that his dad, he played at Tulsa. I think he would have liked for him to play at Tulsa. It would have been really cool for him to play at his alma mater, but I think he wanted him to go to OSU. And I think that's ultimately the decision they both came to.
Yeah, I mean, you just look at the trajectory of the program and what Mike Boynton is doing right now. It's why would you not want to go to Oklahoma State? And I honestly believe, and there's no way for me to know this, I'm not in Bryce Thompson's head, but coming out of high school, it's like, okay, Cade's going to Oklahoma State. That's going to be Cade's team. That's his show. Let me go up to Kansas and try to ball out as a freshman and really establish myself as the lead Jayhawk for the next couple of years, or depending on how high he's able to get in lottery projections and stuff like that, maybe go to the league. Obviously, it didn't work in Lawrence. He fractured a vertebrae in practice, which obviously caused him to miss quite a bit of time. He comes back in. If you'll remember, it was actually against Oklahoma State where he then broke a finger, which caused him to miss some more time. He just pretty much battled injuries, and things didn't go great for Kansas last year. It was just kind of a so-so season. They dropped out of the top 25 at one point on a skid that was really jump-started by the game in Stillwater, and it just never worked. So then he had to come back and decide, okay, where's the best place for me to continue playing college basketball? And I thought the answer was always obviously Oklahoma State. He clearly loved Mike Boynton from the beginning. He didn't come there out of high school for reasons unknown, wanted to go to Kansas and be the man up there. But now I think he's where he should have been, in my opinion, all along. And man, are we happy to have him. It's amazing that we've reached a point now, Carson, and I don't know if you feel this way, but now when Oklahoma State gets mentioned with any of these big recruits, I assume to myself that Oklahoma State's like in the lead. It's their guy to lose because everyone wants to play for Mike Boynton right now. It's an unusual feeling as an Oklahoma State fan to be the belle of the ball when we're talking about recruits, but man, is it a lot of fun.
It really is. And, Bryce spoke to the Tulsa media yesterday, and he was asked about Mike Boynton, and he's like, obviously he's known me since I was like a freshman in high school and has recruited me since. And he said, and he was kind of asked, like, what is it about Mike Boynton and being recruited by him? He goes, he's just a smooth guy, easy to get along with. And just you could really just kind of tell, like, what we've always talked about with Mike, just like when this guy sits down in your living room, you're all in. I mean, I was all in the first podcast we did with him when he was hired. And I'm just thrilled for him. And he's now signed, I think, 2 5-stars and 8 4-stars since November of 2018. And that was always the caveat when he was hired, is like, well, he's going to have to recruit really well because he's going up against big time coaches. Well, he's certainly doing that. And as far as Bryce goes, I think this really shows you what he truly cares about. He wants to win. He's not about personal numbers because he goes to Kansas where he's not going to be a big fish in a small pond at all. He's going to be a small fish in a big pond with all the recruits that go to Kansas. And instead of going to maybe an OU or a Tulsa where he could really truly be the man, he chooses to go to Oklahoma State where Colby, the backcourt's pretty crowded. I mean, Avery Anderson, Isaac Likely back there already as point guards. He's not afraid of competition. Now, he can obviously play combo guard. He can play off the ball as well. And that's really, I think he could really do that really well for OSU. But to me, this shows you that Bryce Thompson wants to win. He doesn't care about personal goals, personal accolades. He wants to go to the best place to win basketball games. He's done that twice now. I think that says a lot about him because a lot of recruits, I think Trae Young personally, that's why he went to OU. I think he wanted to run his own show, be the man. That's why he didn't go to Kansas. He went to OU, and it basically was the Trae Young show. And I think this shows you Bryce Thompson's not about that.
Yeah, I agree. And, whenever we just look at the roster for next season for Oklahoma State, now we still don't know what Bryce Williams is doing, do we? Or have I missed that?
No, he hasn't announced. I think a lot of people think he might just turn professional because remember he famously said, I hate school. So he might not be back. We'll have to wait and see, though. He hasn't made a decision.
I do remember the hatred that he has for school. So that'll be something interesting to keep an eye on. But if he were to come back, Oklahoma State would have him, Avery Anderson, Chris Harris Jr., who missed the majority of last season, Donovan Williams, who was the 4-star player of the year coming out of Nebraska coming in last year. You'll have Ice Still, Rondell Walker, Caleb Boone, Keelan Boone, Bernard Kuma, Tyreek Smith, the transfer over from Texas Tech, Woody Newton, the transfer in from Syracuse, Bryce Thompson, M.A. Moncrief, and potentially Severe Wheeler, maybe the transfer out of Georgia. You never know what's going to happen, but that is a loaded roster. Again, Oklahoma State will be a small team. You don't have the really big guy inside, but even with a small team, I mean, that's going to be tough for opponents to match up with. You got some guys there who can really get after it on the defensive end as well. You talk about Rondell Walker and Isaac Likely. They give you some problems on the defensive end. M.A. Moncrief, I think, will continue to develop, and he's so young, he could even get a little bit bigger. So I just think that the roster for Oklahoma State next year is so deep, and that's the problem that Oklahoma State has had is a lack of depth when it comes to basketball, and that should not be an issue this year. And we should note, Carson, that Mike Boynton is doing all of this. He is attracting all of this high-level talent to Oklahoma State, and the NCAA sanctions are still hanging over the heads of the university. And all these guys have such a love for Mike Boynton and for what he's doing at Oklahoma State, and guys want to be a part of it so bad that they are willing to take that risk and come to Oklahoma State, knowing that these NCAA sanctions are still just hanging out there for what is nearly a year now. So it's unbelievable. It's awesome. Shout out to all these kids who are going to the best place for them and not letting that impact their decision.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, the fact he's doing this with transfers, which is it really is a new world with college basketball with the transfer stuff. Because I mean, Mike Boynton's basically recruiting all transfers right now. Very few high school kids. He's adjusted to the way that the game has shifted tremendously. And you mentioned the depth. The depth they have, Colby, they're going to be one of the deepest teams in the country, I think, let alone the Big 12. And we're going to have to see what some of these transfers do coming into the Big 12. But they're so deep. They do have one scholarship remaining, and our man Marshall Scott from PFB is speculating that they're still going after this 7-footer, Michael Durr, who's transferring from Virginia Tech. Let's see here. Durr, a transfer from USF, initially committed to Virginia Tech before decommitting. So he was South Florida, committed to Virginia Tech. They're facing competition from Indiana, Penn State, Pitt, and others. If they were able to get this guy, a 7-footer, I think that's kind of the missing piece. I love Big Bernard Kuma. He provided some solid minutes off the bench, but I do think this 7-footer is what they need to fill out their roster. That would be a big get as well for Mike Boynton.
Yeah, Wood, it's kind of the one missing piece right now. We talked about it last year whenever Oklahoma State was going in, and you had the matchups with Liberty and potentially could have seen Illinois down the road. And then, Oregon State has the big guy, Silva, I think his name was, who had some success inside. I I don't know what the answer is there for Oklahoma State. Maybe it is the 7-footer out of USF. If they don't get that guy, then it's really just going to be kind of a rotation down there. We'll see Caleb Boone get a lot of minutes down inside. He continues to progress. M.A. Moncrief will get a lot of minutes down inside. Maybe even Woody Newton, who's a little bit bigger guy, 6'8", 6'9", out of Syracuse, will take some turns in there. But Oklahoma State will definitely be playing small if they don't get the kid from USF. But Oklahoma State played small this year. It's Oklahoma State small inside, but then have guards with a bunch of length. So it's good for perimeter defense, not so much for defending the interior. But it just kind of is what it is. It's the one missing link right now for Oklahoma State. Hopefully they can fill a need there. If they can't, you just have to rely on what you've got and force other teams to match up to you instead of trying to match what they're doing. As we saw in that Oregon State game, rebounding was a huge, huge issue. So I think that's my one glaring weakness for Oklahoma State right now at this point is rebounding. But if they can address that, then this team is absolutely loaded at guard and on the wing.
Yeah, and Oregon State was one of the biggest teams in the country. So that really, people look at the seeding like, they shouldn't have lost that game. It really was kind of a bad matchup in terms of the size disparity and the rebounding that you mentioned. So that will be a concern if they don't fill out the roster with another quality big man 7-footer. How do you see Bryce Thompson fitting in with Avery Anderson, Isaac Likely, Chris Harris, all the guys we've just mentioned? How do you see Mike Boynton kind of utilizing those guys together?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's Avery's team, right? I mean, Avery came on. Avery, to me, is the guy right now. Bryce Thompson, obviously super talented, but you still need to see him do it at this level. His freshman year, to me, was robbed of him by injuries. You kind of throw that out the window. He's not a 4-point per game guy. If he is, then something went very wrong. And last year, it went very wrong with the injuries. So I think it's Avery's team. But I do think that you can kind of stagger who brings the ball up the floor, who controls the offense, who runs everything between Avery Anderson and Bryce Thompson. Isaac Likely, to me, is more of a role player than a guy who completely runs your offense. Isaac Likely ran the offense for Oklahoma State a couple years ago. Oklahoma State had walk-ons, traveling to games to make sure that you just had enough players to fill out the court. Now you've got one of the deepest rosters in the country. I think he now becomes an off-the-ball player, a backdoor cut type of guy, almost in the way that the Oklahoma City Thunder used Andre Robertson for a long time. Get him cutting to the basket, keep the defense off guard, make his guy cover him so that they can't just lose him since he's not the best shooter. So I think it'll be Avery's team. He'll control the ball the majority of the time. I think Bryce will get some of it. I see Ice as more of an off-the-ball guy, but I do think late in the game, last 5 minutes, I don't think it will be as severe as it was last year with Cade. Last 5 minutes with Cade last year was just everybody get out of the way. This guy's about to score 10 points in the last 5 minutes, and you're going to win by a possession or two. I don't think it'll be that severe this year, but I do think Avery Anderson will be your guy in the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I do think it's a great option, though, because Isaac Likely is so much different than Bryce Thompson. They have such different skill sets, whereas Likely is more of the defensive kind of bulldog, can kind of make things happen on the defensive end. They can kind of move them around, guard different positions. But there were times last year, Colby, where you almost couldn't have Likely on the floor because the offense would just be 4-on-5. And I'm not sure if injuries played a role in that. Likely was pretty banged up last year, but I do think Thompson provides a great option if your offense is just completely in a quagmire like it was at times with Likely on the floor. You can throw Thompson on there with Avery Anderson and good luck guarding those two. So I think it's a great option in terms of the flexibility and the different skill sets they provide, because he is different, a lot different than Likely, and he's pretty similar to Anderson in that he likes to play some ISO ball and score. But I'm with you. Like some people are critical of Bryce Thompson for the way his freshman year played out. And it's so true about the injuries. I mean, he hurt his back, and in his first time on the floor coming back from that injury, he breaks a finger or hand, whatever that injury was. It was just a season from hell. So I don't think you can make any judgments on how good this kid is based on his freshman year at Kansas. But what OSU is getting, Colby, is one of the best recruits in history of the state. Marshall, I thought, just crushed all the coverage of Bryce Thompson committing on Pistols Firing. He wrote an article where Bryce Thompson ranks among the best high school players in the state. And since 2003, 25 Oklahomans have received a 24/7 Sports composite grade of 0.9000 or higher. And number one is Xavier Henry in 2009, Daniel Orton in 2009, Blake Griffin 2007, J.R. Giddens in 2003, and then it's Bryce Thompson at 2020. And then he ranks ahead of Trey Young, Obi Manello, Darnell Jackson, who went to Kansas, the Jackson Robinson kid who's still out there from Ada, Trey Alexander this year from Heritage Hall as well. So he's one of the best players to ever come out of the state. And so I'm not judging him at all on his freshman year at Kansas, but that's some elite company right there, Colby.
Yeah, good grief. Are there any names on that list? That was quite the list of Oklahoma high school basketball players. And you hope that Bryce Thompson can at some point be one of the biggest names on that list, where in 15 years we sit here and we say, we got this recruit coming through. Can you believe that he's close to Bryce Thompson? I mean, Bryce Thompson, hopefully that's the narrative going forward. You're right. Throw the freshman year out at Kansas. It didn't work. He just needed a fresh start in a new place. Oklahoma State's that new place. Just stay healthy. I just want to see him play 35 games and be healthy. If nobody gets hurt on this Oklahoma State team, they're going to be dangerous because, like you said, you can throw Avery and Bryce out there at the same time, which I'm sure they'll be on the floor at the same time a lot. Those two guys can absolutely score. Donovan Williams dealt with some injury stuff as a freshman. He led the state of Nebraska in scoring his senior year a couple of years ago, averaged like 30 or 31 points a game, I think. He's a scorer. Caleb Boone got much better scoring the ball inside, as did Matthew Alexander Moncrief throughout the year. Still don't know about Bryce Williams. I also kind of would expect him to move on since he's a school hater. I don't blame him. School's only fun for so long, and then you get tired of writing papers and doing equations. So this team's going to be a problem if they can stay healthy, and hopefully they can, because we need to see what Bryce Thompson's all about.
Where would you think they rank in the Big 12 next year? I was just trying to think of that. I mean, the OU's roster is completely flipped. Porter Moser's added some really good transfers. Obviously, Chris Beard at Texas, he's going to be a handful no matter what his roster looks like. Kansas will, I assume, still be Kansas. They're still kind of dealing with their season from hell, and then they have NCAA sanctions kind of looming over their heads as well. So I don't know. I think they're going to be right near the top. I mean, the season they had last year, I think what wasn't a fluke. Even with Cade Cunningham leaving, there were spells where Cade Cunningham didn't play like the number one overall pick in the NBA draft. So I don't just think it's, well, it was the Cade show. Now OSU's going to go back to kind of the middle of the pack. I think they're going to contend for a Big 12 championship next year. Are you that bullish on this roster that he's assembled?
Yeah, I mean, my way too early prediction of the Big 12 next year would probably have Oklahoma State falling in at 4 behind Kansas, Baylor, and Texas. That's my way too early prediction. We'll make actual predictions as we get closer to the season. But those are the 3 teams that I see being probably just a notch above Oklahoma State. It'll be interesting to see what Baylor looks like as they lose a couple of guys off that national championship team. Kansas will still be Kansas. And I really do think that Chris Beard has something brewing down there in Austin. They did lose Coleman, I believe, down there at Texas, but they're going to replace him with more talent.
Greg Brown turned pro yesterday too, so he's gone.
He did. Okay, I missed that. I still think he's got something good brewing down there at Texas, and he's a great coach. So I would say those 3 teams, but I would put Oklahoma State probably closer to that tier than I would to the next tier. The next tier would probably be West Virginia. Man, I don't know. Texas Tech's had so much turnover. I don't know if I can even throw Texas Tech in there, but like West Virginia, OU, I mean, Kansas State, TCU, Iowa State, those teams aren't any good. So I think Oklahoma State's closer to those top teams in the conference than they are to that next tier of teams that don't have a chance to contend.
Yeah, Baylor national champs. I mean, Scott Drew had another like top 5 recruiting class, so I think they're probably going to be the favorite moving into next year. But no, it's going to be exciting. And again, just Mike Boynton is that dude. I mean, and look, all the caveats. He needs to win more. We all know that. He needs to win more than one tournament game moving forward. We all know this. But what he's building and assembling roster-wise, you and I've talked so many times about it. He's doing the Scott Drew method where you just stack recruiting class on recruiting class on recruiting class to where, you're too big to fail almost when you recruit as well as he's recruiting at an elite national level. And OSU basketball is officially back on the national map. So I cannot be more excited. This is the most excited I've been about OSU basketball And gosh, maybe since Eddie was the coach, honestly. I mean, Sean kind of had to go in there his first year, but I never really truly believed in the Marcus Smart teams just because I didn't think Travis Ford was a very good coach, and that proved to be true with losing early in the tournament like he did. But Mike Boynton is awesome, and he's recruiting at such a great level. I just cannot wait to see the next, not just this next season, but the next 3 or 4, just what he's able to build, because he's building something special, Colby. And I truly cannot heap enough praise on what he's done, the way he's just completely won over the fan base. And I cannot wait to see, OSU opened up all the sporting events to fans. I cannot wait to see what Gallagher Iba looks like next year.
Oh, no, I can't either. And Mike Boynton, Oklahoma State did a great job to lock him down and keep him there. He's the guy everybody wants to play for right now. And like you said, he's building something. It's amazing how much the narrative has changed, because he got to Oklahoma State. He's a complete unknown, and he basically spent the first 2 to 3 years of his coaching tenure kicking guys off the team and just trying to field a team that he was proud to put on the floor and that he felt like represented OSU basketball the right way. And then last year, it just all changed. You get Cade in, the #1 pick in the draft. Caleb makes a big leap. Avery makes a big leap. Ice is still very steady. You get Bryce Williams over. He has a great year. It's just so many guys contributed last year, and it has totally flipped the narrative 180 on Mike Boynton. I mean, a year ago, we were still very unsure whether he was the future of Oklahoma State basketball. And now we're all sitting here like, how could we have ever thought that this guy was anything other than the future of Oklahoma State basketball? He's got it moving in the right direction. Oklahoma State's lucky to have him. And like you said, I can't wait for this season, but I also can't wait for the 22-23 season and the 23-24 season, because it's going to be a slow build. And if he keeps stacking recruiting classes on top of each other, that is how you start to build depth and build rosters that can sustain wins and top 5 seeds in the tournament year after year after year. So hopefully that's what we're headed toward with Oklahoma State basketball.
Yep, he's big time. Can't say enough good things about Mike Boynton, and can't wait to see what he continues to do. We did have some other news, Colby. Kendall Daniels, the Oklahoma State signee, he was originally committed to Texas A&M. Beggs football player, was named Gatorade Oklahoma Football Player of the Year yesterday. So a big honor for an Oklahoma State defensive commitment. And that makes now the past 2 winners of the Oklahoma Gatorade Player of the Year have gone to Oklahoma State. That's Brennan Presley, that's Kendall Daniels, and I assume Braylon Presley will be the next one. I think he's going to be probably make it 3 for 3 there. But I was able to see him one time, Colby, and I didn't have the roster, so I didn't know what number he was, Kendall Daniels. It was Beggs against Washington State high school football playoff game. I was there. It didn't take me very long to figure out which one was Kendall Daniels at that level. He just looked the part, and they were getting their teeth kicked in the first quarter of that game. And I remember taking a shot. I was filming the game. I took a shot at Kendall Daniels. He just had a look on his face like, this isn't happening anymore. And the very next play, he blitzes and just annihilates the quarterback. And then he had a pass breakup, and then they had a pick 6, like in the next 3 plays. So this kid just is a super athlete. I don't know if he's going to end up playing safety or linebacker at OSU, but another unbelievable get for Mike Gundy in the defensive side of the football.
Yeah, I mean, this kid's going to be so good. And like we talk about this all the time. You've got to keep the in-state talent in-state. And it's awfully nice whenever they head to Stillwater instead of Norman. We know the battles that you face having to recruit against Oklahoma, and they've got things rolling in recruiting as well. But Oklahoma State has done a better job lately than they have in years past. And it's really exciting to see. Again, you talk about stacking recruiting classes on top of each other. You get Brennan Presley. The next year, you get Kendall Daniels. The next year, you get Braylon Presley. Probably 3 Gatorade High School Players of the Year in a row out of the state. Just keep them in state, keep them happy, and get them on the field. Hopefully we can see. So what would that put us? That would put us at the 22-23 season, where we'll have all 3 of those guys on campus. And then the year after, I believe, is whenever Brennan will be a senior. Actually, his COVID year might not count, so he might have another year. I'm not sure how all that works off the top of my head. But we should have a couple of years overlap where we have Brennan and Braylon both on campus, and Kendall Daniels. So that'll be 3, likely, assuming Braylon gets it next year, 3 high school players of the year in a row at Oklahoma State. So it's just, we talked about it on Wednesday whenever we recorded. There really aren't any sports right now at Oklahoma State, not a single one that I can think of that isn't in pretty good shape. That doesn't mean they're all number one in the country. That doesn't mean that you're going to start, putting together dynasties. But Oklahoma State athletics across the board are in really good shape, and football's a part of that. It seems like things are looking up.
Yep, it's exciting. Speaking of football, 6 players in the Big 12 have Heisman odds. This came out this week. Who do you think is 1, 2, and 3 in the Heisman odds in terms of Big 12 players?
In terms of Big 12 players, well, obviously Spencer Rattler.
Plus 550. He's number 1.
Plus 550. That's actually pretty good odds. I expected him to be not even money, but closer to even money.
I would have said like plus 200 maybe.
Plus 550. I actually think that's really good odds. Might be worth.
Let's go wager on that.
It might be worth an investment. Yeah.
You could do worse than wagering on the OU quarterback.
Yeah.
every year.
Historically, since Lincoln got there, you got about a 50-50 chance to cash. I'm getting 5.5 to 1 odds. So Spencer Rattler. Let's go with.
This kind of surprised me. Number 2.
Let's throw out the quarterback for the Cyclones. How about Mr. Brock Purdy?
He's number 3 at plus 3,500.
3, okay. And you said number 2 surprises you. Number 2 surprises you. That boy, that trips me up there. I don't know.
What team is overrated every single year?
Well, they're not just throwing the Texas quarterback in there just for the hell of it, are they?
Not the quarterback.
Okay, give it to me. I'm on the edge of my seat. Texas
running back Bijan Robinson plus 2,500. He really did come on last year toward the end of the year. He's a 5-star, a high 4-star, depending on which site you look at. And it's just the Texas thing, Colby. You got to put someone from Texas in the team rankings and the individual. So Bijan Robinson is second.
Yeah, I guess. Sure. Bijan Robinson's second. He should not be ahead of Brock Purdy and Heisman odds. That's the logo on the side of the helmet. We know what college football is. College football is strongly controlled by what's on the side of your helmet, and Texas has that advantage. So, I guess we can throw Bijan Robinson in there at number 2 in the conference.
He's a running back. Like I'll take anyone's money that wants to wager that Bijan Robinson's winning the Heisman Trophy.
Yeah, I'll give you better than 25 to 1 odds. I'll give you 50 to 1. Hit me up on Twitter.
Maybe 100. Number 4 is also a running back.
Also a running back, Breece Hall.
You got it. And number 5 is Oklahoma State quarterback Spencer Sanders at plus 5,000. So, and then there's one more quarterback, which you tried to guess that number 2.
The Texas quarterback?
Yep.
And is that, are we convinced that that's Casey Thompson? Do we know that for sure?
I'm not convinced, but that's who they have here at plus 5,000, tied with Spencer Sanders. Casey Thompson has plus 5,000 odds to be the Heisman Trophy winner. See, it's weird because leading into the spring game at Texas, all I kept hearing was Hudson Card was going to be the quarterback at Texas. That certainly seemed to be the opinion of the media down there in Austin. But Thompson, I think, got most of the reps in the spring game and had most of the highlights in the spring game. So it might be Casey Thompson playing quarterback at Texas. I know you covered him a lot, calling games for Southmore when he was there.
Yeah, I did. He was a really good player. It was, I was really bummed to see him go to Newcastle to play his senior year just because he was fun to watch. Got a good arm. He is really talented. He can move. I think it's a good move for Texas. I talked about it on Wednesday. I just think it was time for a change from Ellinger. I think Casey Thompson can be really good. It's just the unknown. I mean, really hasn't played much football the last, 3 years? Has it been 3 years that he's been down there?
Gosh, I think so.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, you never know. Some guys take that time, they learn, they get a ton better. Some guys sit out that long and then they get a starting job. And it's like, man, you can tell that this guy hasn't played football in a long time. So I know he's playing in practice. I know he's doing all those things. It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing as getting out there under the lights with 80,000 people screaming at you. And, not Ronnie Perkins, but Nick Benito and Perrion Winfrey coming off the edge. So I don't know. We'll see how good he can be. I'll be rooting for him because he was a blast to watch and cover in high school.
Yeah, I found other odds here that has Bijan Robinson at 30 to 1. It has Casey at 50 to 1 and Spencer Sanders at 66 to 1 on Vegas Insider. He has 66 to 1 odds as well as Brock Purdy. So it kind of varies based on where you look. But Spencer Sanders going to have a lot on his plate this year, replacing all that skill talent at receiver, at running back. But I think that lends you to believe he's going to have an opportunity to put up big individual numbers, both with the rushing and passing, but he certainly is on the radar amongst, the odds makers, and he's got a real chance, Colby, to have a big season, and certainly how he goes is how OSU is going to go.
Yeah, it is. I mean, obviously, Oklahoma State needs him to step up and be the guy. Oklahoma State's really started to put some talent across the board on both sides of the ball. But we know you've got to take care of the ball. You've got to have big plays on the offensive side. They're just, over the last couple of seasons, there have been too many Oklahoma State football games that we sit there and it looks like it is so difficult to get 10 yards to get a first down. We've seen way too much of that. And, we were spoiled for so long with one of the best offenses in the country. It seemed like, picking up a first down wasn't the issue. It's just once you get down to the 8, are you going to score? Now it seems like that's not the big problem. The big problem is when you get the ball at the 25, don't go 3 and out. Too many 3 and outs for Oklahoma State. Too many short possessions, putting too much pressure on your defense. So Oklahoma State's going to have to be better in that aspect, sustaining drives and just not getting forced off the field so early in possessions, because I think that's how we've gotten into some of these games like what we saw against Kansas State last year, where it just feels like you're swimming upstream in rapids to try to move the ball.
Yep, that's going to be big. The Vegas Insider odds, I think, are a lot better because the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The first 9 guys are quarterbacks, and then the A&M running back is the first running back on the board. So that's going to be who would you wager on here? And they have Spencer Rattler at 3-1 at plus 300. So I think these odds are a little better on Vegas Insider, or more accurate, I should say, not better odds. Who would you wager on right now? Spencer Rattler from Oklahoma, DJ Ugalele from Clemson, JT Daniels from Georgia, Sam Howell from North Carolina, Bryce Young, Alabama, Keaton Slovis, USC, De'Aaron King from Miami, Matt Corral, the old Ole Miss quarterback, Jaden Daniels, Bijan Robinson, Emory Jones from Florida. If you had to wager right now, would you just go with Rattler?
Yeah, I would just go with Rattler. I mean, everybody behind that, you're kind of taking a chance that they have a big season. Barring injury, Spencer Rattler is going to have a big season. I think that, again, barring injury, I think the worst case scenario for Oklahoma in the regular season is 11-1. I don't see a scenario in which that football team loses 2 games with the schedule that they have in the non-con, and then obviously they play the Big 12 schedule. Texas, I don't think is going to beat them this year. Oklahoma State, I don't think is going to beat them this year. Maybe Iowa State gets them, but I doubt it. I really think this OU team is absolutely loaded. So barring injury, I think you're looking at a quarterback who's going to be at least 11-1, probably going to lead the nation in passing yards and touchdowns. That guy typically wins the Heisman. Whatever site you had it at 5.5-1, that to me is great value. I like that a lot better than taking a chance on Ugalele from Clemson or what'd you say, JT Daniels from Georgia. Yeah, I'm out on that. I much prefer the value with Rattler.
Yeah, DraftKings has Rattler at plus 550. FanDuel has him at plus 650. MGM has plus 300. Someone else has him at plus 550 as well. So that may be worth a little sprinkle. I'm with you on the JT Daniels thing. I don't understand this. Georgia's kind of the new Texas in terms of like the national championship overrated odds, because like they don't put Texas up there now for national championship. They just try to predict they'll win the Big 12, which they never do. JT Daniels like failed out of USC, had some good games. He had some really good games at the end of the year last year, but I am just not buying Georgia or JT Daniels. To me, they're the new Texas.
Yeah, I'm out on JT Daniels at Georgia. They made a huge mistake. They had a chance to win a national title. They faltered it away in the second half against Alabama after they were very kindly let back in the game against Oklahoma. And then they chose wrong. They chose Jake Fromm over Justin Fields. They had a decision to make. They chose wrong. I think if they chose Justin Fields, it would have really made a huge difference in the trajectory of college football over the past couple of years, because Georgia's got positions elsewhere on the field, but I don't think JT Daniels is the guy. He strikes me as that kid that was supposed to be this mega recruit star coming out of high school. Things didn't work, and now we keep trying to make him that guy after it's continued to not really work. So that's a big time, I'm going to have to see it to believe it deal for me. I'm out on Georgia as a serious national title or Heisman contender.
I wish I could get odds on Caleb Williams, the backup quarterback at Oklahoma.
Oh my gosh.
If I could get him at like plus, I don't know, 10,000 plus 15,000.
You saying just in case Rattler gets hurt, like first game of the season or preseason even?
I think there's a chance that could happen. I mean, he was benched last year for turnovers against Texas. Then he played unbelievable. They did falter in the Big 12 title game where I think they scored like a field goal in the second half. I like Rattler. I think he's got big potential, but this Caleb Williams kid's really good. He looked awesome in the spring game. He's a number one quarterback in the country. He seems to kind of have the it factor. In terms of a flyer, I don't know if I'm going to Vegas anytime soon, but I'm gonna see if they post his number at any point. I might have to grab that because it's a total roll of the dice, obviously. But I think he would have some big odds if they ever post it. Although if they ever post it, Colby, they're assuming he's going to play some, so probably not. If you play quarterback Oklahoma, they probably cut your odds in half.
Oh yeah, 100%. Because I mean, we've seen what OU does with quarterbacks, and Caleb Williams, I think, is very talented. You know what I want, Carson? I want 2022 Heisman odds, and if we could get 2022 Heisman odds this far out, maybe we could get Caleb Williams at like 20-1. If you find that anywhere, you need to text me because I'm jumping on it.
Okay. Do you want Brennan Presley Heisman odds?
Do you actually have Brennan Presley Heisman odds?
No, I don't think so. I was just trying to think of any OSU guy we could throw up there, but with Tylen gone and with Chuba gone, I don't think they're going to have, and obviously Spencer would be the guy, but I would like to see Spencer's odds a little higher than they are.
Yeah, what'd you say Spencer was? 50-1?
66 on Vegas Insider, but yeah, 50-1 was the initial one I saw.
Okay. Yeah, not really probably good enough odds for me. We know what the Heisman Trophy Award is. It's really Alabama versus the field. If Alabama has one absolute star, that guy wins it. If not, it kind of defers to the quarterback at OU, is what we've seen in recent history. So I'm pretty much out on betting on guys from other teams to sneak up from a lower level program and win the Heisman. That just doesn't really happen except in the very, very off fluke year.
I want to see the Big 12 basketball odds, what they open at. I might sprinkle a little OSU on that. That'd be fun to root for.
I would like that bet better than the Oklahoma State Spencer Sanders for Heisman bet.
Me too. Big 12 softball tournament gets underway today. Oklahoma State plays at 2:00. That's gonna be a fun time this weekend. Any other thoughts on the weekend before we get out of here, Colby?
I don't believe so. I'm hoping that my man Taylor Gooch can have a big day today at TPC Craig Ranch. The scoring in the golf tournament, the PGA event, absolutely insane. If you were 1 under yesterday, so if you shot 1 under par, that was tied for, I believe, 114th after round 1 on the PGA Tour. These guys are just so ridiculously good. We've got 3 guys already at double digits under par, and it's still just Friday morning. So a lot of golf left to be played, but former Cowboy Taylor Gooch, I rostered him just about everywhere this week. He shot 3 under yesterday. He doesn't tee off until just a little before 2:00 our time today. So that's who I'll be keeping an eye on today and hopefully this weekend. I'd love to give a Ricky Fowler update. So Ricky shot 5 under 67 yesterday. He's currently +1 through 11 on his round today. Last week, he blew up on Friday and missed the cut. Hopefully the same doesn't happen this week. But realistically, he's probably going to need to get to 6 or 7 under to make the cut, which means he needs to play his last 7 holes in 2 or 3 under par. It certainly can be done, but with no birdies on the card yet today for Ricky, he's going to have to get hot down the stretch.
Yep. It's good to see him go 5 under, but you're right. This tournament, 5 under's not great because the projected cut, it's a 5 under right now, and that's only going to get higher. So it's going to be a birdie fest this weekend. And then we got the PGA Championship the following week at Kiowa. I can't wait for that as well. So Colby, let's work. Mike Boynton continues to do work in Stillwater. We're going to have so much basketball to talk. This podcast, Colby, before you joined, basketball was like the depressing season. You know, we loved football, and then basketball came around. We're just kind of like, yeah, they lost again, and maybe they can recruit better this next season. So no more of that talk. It's going to be Big 12 championship expectations, and man, I'm fired up for Mike Boynton, and let's work.
Yep. Everybody have a great weekend, and like Carson said, let's work.